In this episode, it's the New Year's Day mystery. Picture this, January 1st, it's the dawn of a new year. After the morning celebrations, firefighters arrive to a home and discover small, multiple sets of fire throughout the interior of the structure, along with some missing occupants. With the help of law enforcement and a canine, will they solve this case? This is Hot Pursuit.
Stories from the fire investigation's front line.
This was a type of unpredictable weather event the Orange County Fire Authority had trained for.
Firefighters responded to the 2200 block of South Susan Street with a report of a commercial structure fire.
Fire investigators are still working on their full report about the cause of the fire.
Investigators need to pick through the debris and answer important questions like, how did the fire start?
The suspect was arrested and charged with 4 counts of arson as well as reckless endangerment.
Welcome to Hot Pursuit, the podcast where we dive into the mysteries and investigations of fire-related true crime cases of the Orange County Fire Authority Investigations Division. I'm Sophia Champeau.
And I am OCFA Fire Captain and Fire Investigator Scott Coleman. And together, we'll take you behind the scenes of some of Orange County's most fascinating and often chilling fire investigations. From arson to accidental fires, we'll explore the evidence, the suspects, and the untold stories that emerge from the ashes.
Every episode will bring you a new case, breaking down the events that led to the fire, and talk to the experts, including fire investigators, law enforcement, and forensic specialists, to give you an inside look at how these cases are solved. Just like you, I'll be hearing these stories for the first time. So sit back, relax, and join us as we uncover the hidden truths behind some of Orange County's most intriguing fire investigations. This is Hot Pursuit. Welcome back, everyone. We're here for episode 3 with our special guest, but I'll wait and I'll let Scott tell us a little bit about the story.
Yes, welcome back to episode 3. And our fire investigator for today is another gentleman I work with named Investigator Miller. We've worked together for a number of years. Something special about Investigator Miller is he's not just an OCFA fire investigator. He's also part of ATF as a task force officer. But there's even another little bonus that I know, Sophia, you love.
This is arguably, no, I'm just kidding. It's top 3 favorite thing about Shaun. First part is just that he's Shaun and he's my favorite.
Thank you.
Second part, though, is he has a dog. Not just any dog. His name is Freedom, and he works alongside Shaun every single day. He gets to ride along with him and stay in his house, and he's an arson dog. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were lucky. We've had Freedom it's been 5 years already, over 5 years. Freedom's a 7-year-old lab. He comes to us through that agreement with the ATF. So he's an accelerant detection canine. In the fire investigation world, he looks for ignitable liquids, things like gasoline or diesel fuel or stuff that may be used to start a fire or make it grow faster. Freedom's one of 4 in the state of California and roughly 60 nationally, which gives us some opportunity to really help Orange County. We're fortunate to have him. But then anywhere in the United States we can go. Freedom's a food reward dog, so all of his food comes with training or work. So he's got to work for his meals, which is good. It helps him stay fit. We weigh him and really monitor his health. And he's just a fun dog. Has a good time. He likes to play, as you know.
I love it when Freedom and Shaun make visits to our office. It's my favorite.
So, having said that, Sophia, what do you think this case may be about today, the one we're going to discuss?
Well, I'm going to assume that we utilized Canine Freedom and his very, very, very good nose. Let's see. I'm going to say arson, and I'm going to say I could guess a city, but I'm not even going to guess.
No, it's okay. The dog did not play a part in this. Yeah.
Well, actually, Scott, I'll correct you a little bit. This case actually played a part in Freedom becoming something to OCFA. So this is one of the cases that we used as an example for why we should have an accelerant detection canine in Orange County.
Because he was not here yet, correct?
Yeah, he wasn't born yet, but yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. So this is how Freedom came to OCFA, basically.
It's one of the cases. It's a time that we used an outside dog.
I would love this episode.
We used an outside, one of the other canines from LA City.
Cool.
It was one of the examples that we utilized as the basis for why we should have one in Orange County.
And the other reason I picked this one, it's one of my favorite cases here in OCFA. It's very true crime. You are going to love it. And it was a lot of good work that Investigator Miller had kind of detected that was kind of outside of our, would it be fair to say kind of outside of our scope, or you were using our expertise in fire investigation to lead to other situations in this case?
Yeah, and in fairness, there was 4 of us out there.
Yeah.
We did it as a team, and really it was just we wanted the answers for our case, and it certainly opened some doors to other stuff.
All right. Well, I'm excited to get this going
can't wait.
because you're going to love it. You're going to
I'm
love
at the edge
it.
of my seat, literally. And I will say for our listeners that Freedom is not in the room with us, but we will post a photo of him on social media so you can look at Freedom and listen to us.
All right. So should we get into the case?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's jump in.
All right. So Shaun, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this great case that you were involved in and with a really good outcome.
Yeah, for sure. So this case was January 1st, 2017. So it was quite the way to kick off a new year. Unfortunately, it kicked off a trend for me on January 1st to where I don't really care to work them any longer. So about 5 o'clock in the morning, we were dispatched to a working structure fire. I was working with one of my partners who retired, so just part of our normal working structure assignment, we were dispatched. But things didn't seem right almost from the get-go. There was talk of people inside. Hey, there's a rescue, people inside. The first engine company that got on scene reported smoke showing, a resident outside, and took incident command. And then really quickly he said, wait, I'm going rescue. There's someone inside.
Okay, really quickly, which city is this?
City of Westminster.
Okay, Westminster. Okay.
City of Westminster. So he quickly changed from taking command to rescue, which, as Scott will tell you, is certainly something that kind of perks us up as investigators. Like, hey, okay, there's more to this. Let's figure this out. Some urgency, just like for the firefighters on the engines. It changes things for us a little bit. So while we were en route, listening to the radio, they would get a primary all clear. And then, wait, we went rescue, but we're getting a primary all clear. So the primary all clear is essentially saying there's nobody inside. And then you'd hear them go back in and talk about, nope, we've done another search and they're still all clear. We haven't found anybody. So one of the first things that my partner and I did when we got on scene was, we determined that I would be the lead investigator just based on, how we alternate calls, and he would do interviews. I said, hey, will you really quickly figure out why there's confusion on whether or not somone's inside?
Yeah.
That's a big deal to me.
That is a big deal, yeah. Life-saving big deal, yeah.
Yeah, why is this confusing? It shouldn't be. There either is someone or there isn't. So my partner, I won't use his name, just he's retired, and I can't ask him if I can use his name, but he interviewed the resident that said, I was home, I'm the one that called, and I'm a renter, and the owner of the house should be inside. Her car's here. I know she was here last night. I heard they were having a party. So I'm certain that she's in there. And so my partner passed it along to me, and I asked the truck company, hey, can you guys go in and look again? We've looked like 3 times. Are you sure? Yeah, someone's in there. That's what they keep telling us. So they went in, conducted another search. By this time, we have like primary, secondary, multiple times. There's nobody inside. So we interviewed the tenant again and really kind of grilled down on him, like, why? He said, her car is over there. I heard her last night at like 2 a.m. when I came home. She was here with friends. She's here. She was there.
So can I just cut in? So he's persistent that occupant owner should be in the house.
Based on the evidence, like the car is there and things like that, and like what they heard
and
saw.
And short, a few hours before the fire, when he went to bed, he heard her there.
Oh, okay.
But even though you're coming out saying, we've looked, we can't find her, he's like, no, she's there?
Yeah, he's saying she should be there. Like,
okay.
There's her car. So it was more us saying, like he's saying she should be here. Here's her car. It was more us going, well, if she's supposed to be here, where is she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
were you guys having to like call her phone, like try to like verify that way?
We didn't even get to that point yet. We were still kind of trying to figure that out. So
I'm sure it was happening also quickly as well.
Yeah, it was kind of dominoing on us pretty quick. Like I said, as soon as they went rescue, it kind of amped things up for everybody. So we're just trying to figure those pieces out. So once we said, hey, there's a all clear, primary and secondary. There is nobody else in that house. It kind of, we had some time. Time is on our hands now, so we slowed back down. I asked the engine captain that was first there, hey, what'd you see? What happened? They had to force entry. He said, but I think there's at least 2 fire starts inside. And we also found the stove on. So, I'm sure you've talked with Scott enough about some of these cases that as soon as we have separate starts, that's another one of those things that in Scott and I's world is, okay, that's a clue. Let's think about that.
And when you say start, I'm assuming that means we talked a little bit about a device in the last episode. So something like that, because I know they were talking a little bit about like a delayed timer so that they have time to leave or anything like that. Is that essentially what that type of?
No, what I'm referencing is separate areas within the house that there was fires. So separate fires.
Oh, I see.
So there was evidence, the initial captain believed that there was 2 separate fires in the house, which we don't, it's rare to have one accidental fire inside of a house. We have how many houses? Yeah, 2 at the same time.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
I want to address one thing that's important for us as fire investigators. You said something that I keyed into, and maybe you missed it, is that we had to force entry. So for us as fire investigators, that means something, and I'll let you describe what you think it means, especially in this case.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that as a layperson.
Yeah, so by forcing entry, it means the door wasn't open when we got there. It was locked, which was kind of confusing for me initially because we had 2 tenants that said, I was in the house, I lived there. Well, then why did we force entry? And fast forwarding a little ways ahead, we'll always come back, but they were tenants that basically used either the side yard or the backyard to enter the house.
Okay, so there's a total of 3 tenants, the owner of the home and then 2 other individuals. And I'm recapping a little bit here for our audience. And one of the individuals was the one who was telling you, like, no, someone's in there, someone's in there. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. So 2 of the tenants were home at the time of the fire.
Okay, and they were able to escape. However, very sus that it wasn't locked, or it was locked and that you had to force entry.
Yes, that engine company had to force entry through the front door when they came in. So I walked through with the captain, and he showed me his 2 areas of origin that he believed. And I concurred. I said, yeah, this definitely looks that way. And we call it our site safety survey, where we walk through and, hey, is it safe for me to do my investigation? And then what is the scope of my investigation? Like, how big is this going to be? What resources do I need? And what am I in for? Kind of planning process. So as I walked through, we identified these 2 areas of origin, or that the captain had identified. I saw a purse on the counter. And, our prior conversations outside were the woman who owns the home is supposed to be home. So I saw this purse on the counter, and on the outside of the purse was a wallet, and there was an ID. So I said,
and the wallet's open?
Yeah, it was like, it had like a window, and the wallet was sitting next to it. I went, okay. So, well, I mean, I still am married. My wife doesn't go anywhere without her wallet or her purse. Like, something's not adding up.
Yeah.
So I took the ID and I took it outside to my partner, and I said, is this the homeowner? And I showed the ID to the witness or the tenant. And he goes, no, that's her friend. Which naturally made hair on the back of my neck stand up. I went, crap. And there was a police officer there, and he goes, oh, okay. So I go, hey, I need you to identify her, find her.
Yeah.
She lived nearby, different city, Huntington Beach. We need to try to get in touch with her. Like, why is her ID here? Was she here last night? So now I'm on the fire investigation side. I want to know who was at. Well, I didn't say that part. There was a party at the house, evidence of a party. It was Christmas time or New Year's. So the Christmas tree was still up. There was, food all over the place, alcohol bottles. So there was a party for New Year's, which we know now. And we knew pretty quickly then. That's one of the things the tenants were talking about is, oh, we heard her here at a party last night. So I give that to the officer. He goes, okay, well, what does this mean, to you? I said, well, as a fire investigator, I'm suspicious of this fire because there's 2 separate starts. The one tenant says the homeowner should be here and that her car's outside. and now I found the ID for another woman.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me and he goes, so what are you thinking? I go, well, I think there's 2 women we need to find because I need to talk to them.
One's supposed to be in the house, and one allegedly owns the house.
Exactly. Like, they were both here, and I have evidence they were both here, and they're not here now, and I want to know why. So that was kind of clue number 1 that really pushed him into, kind of brought that law enforcement fire investigation to where we have very separate jobs oftentimes, but they have so much crossover that without the piece we're doing, to him, he's doing traffic control and just, making sure all of our needs are met. But every step I'm taking, I'm drifting more into his lane, and to where this is going to be a joint thing that we're going to have to do together. So, that was clue number 1. And so that officer went off to go start that process, door knocking and trying to locate that other woman. And meanwhile, my partner and I continued with our investigations and our examination of the scene, outside the house and then moving to the inside. And as I came inside, immediately to the left was the Christmas tree. It was a fake Christmas tree, which was on fire or had been on fire. That was one of the fires. Interestingly, there was a bottle of Folex and like carpet cleaner and a bottle of vodka, empty bottle of vodka laying on the carpet right in that room by the Christmas tree. So I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
We took pictures of it and kind of moved on. And then there was a day bed or a Murphy bed in an office. But I noticed some wiring kind of hanging out of the desk and moved on, went to the kitchen, confirmed that there was a burner that was on. The firefighter said this burner was on. There's no pot on there. So that was, also another clue for me that kind of pushed us to involving another party in our investigation, and that was the gas company. So we're having to work with them get reports on, hey, how long was that on? So they're able to kind of help us out with that.
I didn't even know you could, that would make a lot of sense, but I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't either until we talked to the gas company guy, and he said, hey, I can get you a report. So I'm just on data and information overload.
Yeah, you're piecing together the story one bit at a time.
Yeah, just little bits, but they're not adding up. These things aren't adding up.
So and is it a gentleman, the one that was like, oh no, there's someone in the house,
Yeah.
So that and he's the tenant, right? So is the other tenant, is that person vocal at all, or is that one tenant doing kind of all the talking for the both of them?
So they're separate when we're doing the interviews. The one is the one that's adamant that she's home and those things. The other one, and we'll tell you why at the end.
Oh, okay.
The other one is just like, hey man, I live here. You guys woke me up that there was a fire.
I know nothing about nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Which becomes suspicious in its own sometimes, but not in this case.
Okay. Just a guy renting a room.
Yeah, just a guy renting a room who goes around one side of the house into the backyard, and that's how he enters his room. And there wasn't much fire involvement in his room, and if I remember correctly, he actually was still inside when the crews first got there.
Oh.
So he came out, which may have added to some of the confusion about the woman being in there.
Oh, that would make sense, yeah.
So this is still my initial kind of look at the scene. And then I go to the other side of the house, which consisted of all the bedrooms, and kind of look through those. And there's some fire damage. I have identified the 2 areas already from the captain that was first on scene. Has some fire damage, and it's not real consistent. But I go into what would be the primary room with the attached bathroom. And when I go in there, there's like a bed with bed sheets, but there's no comforter. And there's kind of clothes thrown around. Like, well, I mean, my house looks like this most of the time, but not when we're having a party, you know?
Yeah.
We've cleaned up. And then as I kind of scanned around, just looking at everything, I see an entertainment center. And underneath the entertainment center, there's just, 6-7 wires just hanging there, which I kind of went, that doesn't look right. So I looked at the wires, and they're like a twist-on wire. So you put it on, then you twist it on the back. And just from prior experience, I know that that's usually a DVR or cameras.
Oh, okay.
So earlier when I was walking around the house, I noted that there was cameras on the outside of the house. So naturally, we'd love to find that that DVR because it may tell us some answers. So as I go there, that doesn't look right, but who knows? So continue on the inside. I don't find anybody else inside. We go back outside and have some more conversations with the witness or the tenants, and then the homeowner's daughter shows up. So we talk to her about a few things, talk to her about the DVR, where the cameras, where do they record? Oh, there's a DVR in my mom's room. Which room's your mom's? Oh, it's the one in the back with the attached bathroom. Okay, where's the DVR at? Oh, it's right under the TV in the entertainment center. And now I'm just like,
where all those missing wires are?
This is not good. I had a bad feeling.
Oh, no.
Just this whole thing was kind of giving me a really bad feeling, and
trying to be sensitive and navigate. Yeah.
And that's a question for her to ask, right? So that's also kind of a clue for us sometimes too. Is she going to ask where her mom's at and want some of that info?
Oh,
kind of a telltale.
Yeah, how they react to it.
So we don't.
Okay. That's like when the suspect is like, they were stabbed, and you're like, how did
you know that?
Stabbed? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I want to get as much information from them.
These are like, you're the investigators and I'm not. Yeah, exactly.
Either through some direct questions or just what they're going to tell me before I offer too much.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm trying to keep anything from them, but I really don't know. This is just, like I said, it's data and information overload. There's just so much coming in. And by the way, this is occurring over multiple hours. I would say this is probably 4 or 5 hours into it that we're kind of at this point.
So I can butt in. So it's just like when Shaun came in, you were like, okay, Shaun, but your first question is, where's the dog? Right? So if you're
Shaun probably hates that question so much. He's like, it's me.
But so if the daughter, so we're waiting to see what their questions are to us. And that's kind of why I said, plus he's getting that bad
strategy.
Yeah, but he's getting a bad feeling too. Like, am I going to break this news to her? But you're like,
but I also
waiting.
need information before she becomes emotional, because at that point, then you could lose potential information on the case. Like,
yeah, and we did, talk to her about her mom and where she was at, and she confirmed that there was a party. Her mom was having a New Year's party and had some friends from work over and that kind of stuff. So she confirmed some of those details, and she confirmed, hey, that's my mom's car. My mom doesn't go anywhere without her car. Well, would she go anywhere with anybody else? Well, she gave us her mom's friend's name. And she goes, well, if she's anywhere but home, she's with this person who was at the party last night. I'm like, yeah, is that this person? And yes, yeah. So the ID that I found, daughter says, hey, if she's not home, then she's with her. You should check her house. Okay. So at that point, I have another conversation with the police officers, and unfortunately, when they had gone and tried to find the other person, they talked to her daughter, who said, no, my mom's at a party at this other house in Westminster. And so now basically everybody's kind of pointing like, hey, they should be together, but at the other place.
Oh, it's like when you were a teenager in high school. You're just saying, I'm spending at that person's house. I'm spending at that person's house.
That tells more about you.
Yeah.
To be honest, that statement. We don't know what you're talking about.
I have teenagers. Can you explain that to me later?
First of all, I never did that, Mom. I know you're listening. And Grandma.
I think we just got a confession. See how it works? See how it works?
See,
I was a square. I'm still a square.
So we kind of move on to talking with our police partners, and I kind of go, hey, man, this is what I'm seeing. I have at least 2 fires. We haven't dove into this too much, but we have 2 fires. I still have a lot that I need to look at to figure out what caused those 2 fires. But there's 2 fires, and they're not connected. We found this person's ID. She's not here.
Yeah.
And then we have the tenants telling us that the owner should be here. We've talked to daughters who say these 2 women should be together, and they were the night before. And meanwhile, while all of this is going on, like I said, there's a bunch of us on duty. I was supposed to be going home at 8 a.m., so we had the fortunate piece that we had 2 new investigators coming on, so they were there. So there was 4 of us at the time. So they were kind of walking around the neighborhood looking for cameras and video and that kind of stuff. And while that's going on, we find a video of a car that left the neighborhood. And it was kind of a unique car with kind of a unique license plate. So they kind of following up on that, like, what's this car? What is this?
Shaun, did you see it leaving the house? the house in question where the fire occurred? Or you just saw
Just
a
the
car,
neighborhood,
a
like a
random
road.
car?
So the house is in a cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So we see the car leave the cul-de-sac that house was in.
Okay. So not necessarily tied to the house yet, but it requires follow-up.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like I said, the fire's at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it was early morning hours. There's not a lot of traffic through this residential neighborhood. It's certainly just, like I said, more data, more just information overload that's just flying in at us. So I have a conversation with the police officer. He's like, hey, we went to the house. We can't find her. Can't find this other woman. We're trying to call their phones, but they're not answering. So they've kind of stepped it up, started calling phones. So then we discussed, hey, because I have 2 starts on the fire side, I'm going to start an accelerant detection canine. So we were fortunate enough to have a great relationship at the time and still do with LA City Fire and their canine. It was Blue, who retired, I guess, about 1.5 years ago. So Blue was fairly young at the time. And so we requested him. So while they were coming out, we continued kind of chasing down things and getting more information. So while they're doing that, we elected to try to do some emergency pings on their phones. So Westminster Police obviously were handling that. So they started doing the pings and weren't getting anything back, which essentially meant the phones were off. Okay. Either they were dead or they were off. So we're waiting for the K9 to get there. We kind of have a briefing with our law enforcement partners. The lieutenant who came was awesome. He goes, hey, man, what do you have? And, how can we help you? And I kind of joked and I said, well, I think I'm going to be helping you. And this is probably the part that you're figuring out already, but we kind of divulged this early when we're talking. He and I are talking, and he laughed and he said, it's a fire. And I said, well, let's go for a walk. So we walked through the house and I showed him, the multiple fires and evidence of the party. Then I show him the purse and he's kind of looking at me funny, like, all right. And I don't remember if it was when I was with him or prior, but looking at the purse, there's a condom and condom wrappers and just stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's some more data and info that's coming in. And he's starting to track with me. And then we go into the primary bedroom and I show him the DVR cords and those things and talk about all of our witnesses and all those things. And he goes, so what are you telling me? And I said, I'm telling you that I have a fire in a house that's suspicious, and you have 2 missing women. And he said, I agree. So he started calling all of his detectives and ramping that piece up while we have the dog coming. And we essentially at that point decided that, okay, we're working this together because we both have pieces we have to do that if we just go full Shaun mode and be a bully and just take over and run through the scene, I'm going to mess up their scene. And if we back out and let them just take over, they're going to mess up ours. So it truly became something that we had to be coordinated on and work together.
And I'll tell you, that's hard. As we talked in the last episode,
Yeah.
you really have to get a relationship with your brother and sister agencies.
The trust has to be there.
And we don't want to ruin each other's scenes. So it gets pretty sensitive. And Shaun was real good. That's why I like this story.
Yeah.
As well as Bill's
Brought
last
him in
story, too.
early.
Yes.
You're the one who's like, hey, I don't want to mess your thing
Let's
up.
respect each other's scene. And it goes good. And you'll get a good conclusion in this case.
Yeah.
Because of that approach.
Yeah. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a long time. We were there a long time.
You bonded with them. Trauma bonding.
They're going to be at the barbecue this weekend, by the way.
Scott will tell you that to this day, if I go into the city of Westminster, they're still friends and people that we work together, and there's definitely a bond over this case that is lifelong. I still talk to the detective who ran the case on the PD side, who's retired for a few years. We'll still call each other a few times a year.
Cool.
Just there's definitely a bond as these things went on.
And I'm sure law enforcement even probably thinks it's cool when they get the opportunity to talk to you guys about the arson piece of it, because they probably don't do that all the time. So they're
Yeah, definitely.
They're always interested in what we do. They're like,
Yeah.
what kind of black magic are you doing in there? And we're like, no, here's what we're looking at. So
Yeah.
they show interest. I know I do. I think Shaun does too. I'll be like, hey, you're welcome to come in. Let's just put some booties on you. I'll walk in and they're like, what does that mean? So we'll explain. They're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. So what are you seeing on yours? Like, oh, well, the detective's talking about this blood splatter. So you kind of like cross-train.
That's awesome too, because when you guys do that, it builds relationships with them to do it back to you if they see anything sketchy too.
And then we know. So I get on scene. I'll be, let's say if Sean's a fellow officer from another agency, I'll be like, hey, Sean, what's up? Hey, you want to go in? Yeah. Hey, here's what we're seeing. And right away you get to problem solving, and we kind of already know how not to step on each other's.
The trust is there.
Yes.
So it's like automatic, like, boom, let's do it.
Yeah. And this is a great story for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
This was, and it was early on. I mean, I think 2017. So I'd been in our section for roughly 2 years, a year and a half. So it was early on in my investigations career. So it was definitely a learning piece. And I'd say this incident has definitely adjusted the way that I work with our PD. I learned from it and built a lot of it. Scott and I had one in Santa Ana where it was very similar, and Scott was like, hey man, what do we do? Scott's been doing this a really long time, but kind of relied on me based on this case, like, hey, how do we do this? And it's definitely slowing down and having those conversations on the front end to get on the same page so that everybody builds that trust, and then we move forward to have good results. And I know Scott made a funny face, but ultimately that case has had the best outcome it was going to have.
Yeah, and we'd love to talk about it, but it's not adjudicated yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was I leaned on Sean. Yeah. I leaned on Sean. I'm like, look, clearly this is similar to the case you had in Westminster, which you'll know. I'm like, so let's divide this up. Let's invite the detectives in with us. Let's see what part they're interested, what part, and maybe so we don't step on each other's case. And it happened. And to a certain extent, it worked beautifully. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. For sure. So we continued on. We had the dog coming. They're building a team of detectives, and it's January 1st. It's a holiday. So
yeah, that's
building that team is rough. And the next piece, I've already, with concurrence from the detective, I've already been on the phone with the district attorney's office. Like, hey, I knew one of the DAs that actually lived nearby there, and we had a relationship from work we've done. And so, hey, this is just a heads up. This is what we have at this point. But I might need you later for some warrants and some other things, because we'll get into that. But I might need you later. And she was on board from the get-go. So it was truly bringing in all the groups to make sure that everybody was on the same page and we weren't messing something up by doing our piece, messing up someone else's piece. And I think that was critical. So we worked through those things. Dog came out where they're putting together their team. So we ran Blue inside, and Blue alerted, 5, 6, 7 places. The Christmas tree.
Not the Christmas tree.
the carpet where we talked about the Folex and the bottle of vodka, and a few other areas. So at that point, we now have 2 fires. We have 2 people that are unaccounted for. It's hard to call them missing, but they're unaccounted for. Some suspicious things inside the house that have some concern, and now alerts from the accelerant detection canine. So at that point, we met again with PD and said, hey, let's just lock this down. There's nobody inside. Let's slow down and start writing warrants to go get the evidence inside. So we didn't collect anything. We just identified it, which, we're establishing probable cause and some of those things. We had exigency to be inside, but at some point that kind of runs out.
Crossing your T's and dotting your I's.
Yeah,
should it come to a trial, we
just
making sure
we do
not
the best job we can.
Anyone's rights. Yep.
For sure. So this is kind of where it gets good, in my opinion, right? So we've had all this data just piling on us. We have that car leaving the neighborhood. While we're doing all these things, the dog alerts. Scott will enjoy this. We took a part of the Christmas tree. We took it outside because there was a big debate. The police officers were like, no, it's a Christmas tree. They burn. Like, it could just be the lights from the tree. I'm like, it's a fake tree. I'm like, yeah, but they still burn. So we literally took parts of it outside and tried to light them on fire, and they wouldn't burn. And then when everybody went, yeah, that can't be true, we did it a second time. So we were continuing to work through this whole thing. And, the fake tree wouldn't burn, or it wouldn't sustain burning, not to what we saw or the firefighters experienced when they hit the door. It wasn't adding up. So while we're working on that warrant, we're back in touch with the DA again. So we're working on the warrant, and it's a joint warrant because there's pieces of it that we need as fire investigators, and then there's pieces that the police officers need for their side of things. And so we're writing this warrant jointly to make sure everything is captured. So while all of that's happening and all of that stuff is going on, police have sent people to canvass the neighborhood looking for more cameras. Some of our guys are out doing the same thing. And I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone as part of our group, while we're now having a briefing. So myself, the lead detective, the lieutenant, I think the BC, and a few other people are just kind of meeting to plan how this is going to go, because we know this is going to be like hours.
And really quick, BC stands for Battalion Chief.
Yes. That way I wasn't in charge and there was someone else responsible for everything going on. So while we're meeting and kind of planning, and I think it was someone from Westminster, but concurrently we had one of our investigators coming at the same time. Hey, that car that we see leaving the neighborhood, there's one just like it with a guy standing by it right there. And they kind of like, they point across the street, and we looked and went, oh man, wow. Okay. This is interesting. And in one of the videos, we'd seen someone getting in the car. So, okay, they're weird. And there's someone standing there. So we said, okay. And someone from Westminster that was canvassing said, yeah, the guy says he was at the party here last night and wants to know if everything's okay. And we just kind of went, And as Scott will tell you.
Wait, can I guess what you're going to say?
Yeah.
People who are involved in the crimes usually want to look at it or be involved in the investigation somehow. That might not be what you're going to say, but I feel like you hear
it is. They come back. They
Is
come
that really
back
what
and they
you're
watch.
saying?
Yeah.
You listen to too much true crime.
I do.
Absolutely.
I was watching Matlock way too young. I'll say that.
Can you explain Matlock for the anyone under 50?
So my grandma Alma, when I was 3. No.
So
I wish I was lying.
Then there's Magnum PI, this guy in a Ferrari.
Most handsome detective you've ever.
True.
I think Scott still has some shorts, like Magnum PI. Yeah.
We digress.
We're gonna be here way past 5.
No, we're good.
I'm just kidding. So we essentially do some more planning and decide that the detective, and we're right about lunchtime, the lead detective for Westminster PD, he's gonna go talk to the person. So he goes and starts conversation with that person and his wife and son, and they decide that they're going to go back he's going to drive over to Westminster Police Department and sit for an interview since he was at the party. So this is like noon. This is, 7 hours from the time of the fire.
And this was the car seen leaving that morning
before the fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Can we give him a fake name so we can keep track of this guy?
We don't even need to give it.
Oh, we don't? Okay. We don't need to give him a fake name. Okay.
Car guy.
Car guy. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Car guy.
Yeah, we'll call him Silly, and I'll tell you why later.
Okay, silly car guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
silly
just
car
silly. We'll just call him Silly.
Okay.
Well, that's part of his license plate was Silly.
Oh.
So when I
silly
said
car guy.
I said it was really identifiable. So
Oh, okay, perfect. So silly car guy.
So Silly and Westminster officers or detectives go back to Westminster PD, and they start their conversations. And just interviews and doing some of those things. And obviously I'm not there. So to speak to all that, I know the information I'm getting in, but they're there doing that. And we're at the scene working on the warrant and that kind of stuff, which takes time. It takes a long time because we have to write it. It has to be approved by the deputy district attorney. Then it has to go to a judge. Judge has to review it, say approve it, ask for changes, those types of things. So in this case, took a few hours, got the warrant written. It went to the judge who initially sent it back and essentially said that it was authored primarily by a police officer. I gave them pieces that we needed. Hey, here's what we need to collect when we go inside. Here's what we need from the warrant. But essentially the judge said that officer is not qualified to say that the fire was arson or to say that there's probable cause to issue a warrant to go in there because the officer didn't have any training in fire investigations.
Oh,
so this is
interesting.
where we talk about, we have two very separate lanes, but they definitely cross in and out, kind of like the 405 during construction where the lines just go all over the place. That's essentially what's happening with us. So we had to rework it. I had to include stuff about me, my training, my experience within the warrant alongside the officers. Then we both had to sign it and swear to the warrant, essentially, is how that works.
So interesting, just to touch on that, right now in Orange County, if a police officer or law enforcement officer makes an arrest for arson, if it is not accompanied by a fire investigation report from a certified fire investigator, from a local fire investigator, they will not accept that case because technically the officers don't have that fire investigation training, and so they can't really testify to that in court.
Yeah.
So our DA is just like, if there's no report from one of you guys, and not just us, but any agency in Orange County, we're not going to move forward with it. So that's kind of, we built up a lot of trust with our
well, and the
DA's
training
office.
you guys go through is extensive, and I mean,
It's specific to just this.
Yeah, you can read books on
Yeah.
people who have not gone through the training and what happens. So
You ask me anything outside of arson, I don't know. If you get me in there, then I'm your guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, I love that.
So we eventually get the warrant back approved, and that's for a variety of items that specific to us were those items where samples from where the K9 Blue had alerted and said, hey, there's something here. So we went in to collect those items. That was the first thing we were going to do, is collect those items to remove them from the house so that while the rest of the search that's covered in that search warrant went on, we didn't destroy any evidence that we'd already identified. And that's where things kind of thicken the plot a little bit. So like I said, some of the alerts were on carpet, and we had carpet cleaner and we had vodka, or empty bottle of vodka, which still, at the end I know, but at the time, I'm like, man, what is going on? So we start cutting the carpet. We use, we're really careful, new gloves, new can, new tools, cut this carpet that we're going to take as a sample. So we cut the carpet, and from the top, it looks great. Cut the carpet and roll it to put it into the can, and we're going to submit it for ignitable liquids. Well, I don't know if you've ever replaced carpet in your house, or when you have, the top can look really clean, but everything that had gone through it shows on the backside. So we had a very dark red stain on the backside.
Blood.
I told you like the story.
Yeah. So now we're pulling evidence that, man, so now we've got to have that conversation with our law enforcement partners again. Like, hey, we're going to take, well, they're with us, but our plan is to take this evidence for ignitable liquid testing, and we're going to put it inside of a can, and we're going to do all this stuff to see if there's ignitable liquids. But if we do that and we seal it in the can, we're trying to keep everything in, it can damage other evidence. So we have to balance that. So we really had to work together to identify, how important is that? Can we find it somewhere else? Fortunately, we were able to find it somewhere else. We didn't get lucky and just catch the little piece that had it.
There was enough they could pull it from another area.
there was other stuff. So we were able to go through.
That's an interesting scenario. It's something that you don't really think that you guys would have to deal with, but that's a sensitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it has to be collected the right way. So what he was saying, if you put it in the can, if I want to get DNA or fingerprints from something and I put it in a can with it's the slightest amount of moisture, it's going to ruin your sample. The lab can't pull stuff from that. So if he wants the blood, first you want to test the blood and see what else and confirm it's blood. You need to put that you need to collect that in a different manner. So we want to show and prove that there was an accelerant, but they want to show
without destroying the
and
blood.
we don't want to ruin each other's evidence. So that's when by working together, you just start like, hey, here's what we need. What do you need? And then let's see if there's more, but it becomes challenging.
Yeah. Great job so far.
Yeah, it's definitely system overload, right? With just this information coming in, and it's. I think by this time we're at nightfall. I mean, we've Chiefs had to bring us a couple different meals just to get us through, and we haven't slept. It was New Year, so we literally went from one call to this one. It wasn't, we weren't asleep all night. We went from one to the next, and we're still out here. So we continue through. We identify our evidence. We collect those samples, and things that we found during that time meant that additional warrants had to be written to collect additional pieces. Mind you, any attempts to locate the two women, or the homeowner and her friend, are nothing. We're not finding them. We're a number of hours, we're at least 12 hours into this thing, and they haven't shown up.
Yeah.
They're not there. Where are they? Nobody can find them. We're looking. This is near the Seal Beach Naval Weapons, so we're kind of looking in areas. Can we find anything?
So for the listeners, why is the weapons base an area that's of importance?
Oh, just directly, it's an open
It's
land,
a big open field,
and then directly across the street there's a large drainage ditch. There's all kinds of things.
For stuff to go wrong. Okay,
yes, and although we're here and we're talking about this, we kind of know there was nefarious stuff, but at the time it's like, hey, maybe they just went for a walk and they got lost. Who knows, right? So we have to keep everything in the open. So while we continue with warrants and that kind of stuff, they're continuing the interview at Westminster Police, and we're getting some information as they're moving along in this. And obviously I wasn't there, but they're giving us some information that's definitely taking us down this path of we have the right guy. We have the right guy, and we need to know what happened.
The right guy being Silly?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Silly. So as we continue down this path, more families showing up. Daughters are there, and then a son, and we're asking them about things, with the house and mom and behaviors and all that stuff, and we figure out that the two victims work together. The two people that we're looking for work together. And then one of the other things that came up is Silly, his wife, worked with them also, which is what brought him to the party.
Oh, okay.
So they're all friends. So we've able to identify those pieces, and we continue down that path. We spend a number of hours still searching, canvassing, searching the house, doing things with the warrant, and eventually we learned that, as we looked at the DVR, we're like, man, there's more cameras than there are wires. Like, what's going on? So we start having conversations and trying to explore that, and we eventually learned that there was another DVR.
Oh, okay. So 2 missing DVRs.
No, just one missing. There's still one in the house.
Let's say there's 8 cameras. I'm just making up a number.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like the person took a DVR but didn't realize there was another one for the additional cameras.
Got it. Okay. So said bad guy or girl
Yes.
took one thinking they were sneaky, not knowing there was a second one. Okay, got it.
And we haven't confirmed that yet, but there's one missing. There's evidence of one missing, and we find out that there's another one for the house. And so some more work, but we eventually go in and we find it. Meanwhile, the interview's going on, and we're building pieces. We
and you're
find
probably
it.
stoked that you found this.
Yes, we're very excited. We're very anxious to see what's on it. So it's collected, it's taken back, so they can start looking at it and figure out what's going on. And to be honest, I'm gonna say we're close to midnight by this time. So we're almost 24 hours on scene.
Oh man.
But there's so much information. I didn't feel a thing. There's so much information, data coming in that my mind is just spinning and making sure we're doing all of everything we need to do. And the entire time it was work. There was work occurring.
And on top of that, there's 2 women that are missing.
Yeah, I don't know if you could sleep if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You'd just be like, I got to figure this out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
I brought one thing that I brought with me, just like, there's all kinds of reports and stuff, but just to kind of give like an indication of the stuff that went on was that we had to do. That's a diagram that we had to make. So that it's essentially a diagram that I drew of the house, and it's as close to scale as I can make it. So we're taking measurements of walls, locations that we found, the Christmas tree or the fires, all of those things, evidence, all the markers. So while all of these things are going on, and I talked about we're almost there 24 hours at this point, these are things that are occurring, just doing those drawings. And Scott can tell you that's a lot of work to get that much detail
Especially
in there.
when you go to scale.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's much harder, but that's a really good drawing.
Yeah, it's so we can't share the
It's
map.
a shame we can't show it.
I know we can't share the actual map, but think of it for our listeners as if you're looking at apartments, like you're going to rent a new apartment and you're looking at the layouts that kind of accommodate like you and your family. It's very much like that. Like it identifies where the bedrooms are and the bathrooms, the kitchen, things like that. And then in addition to that, they've sort of layered other things like a red arrow that says fire 1, fire 2, that kind of thing.
Yes. So we identify the fires. We identify, you can see we identify evidence, the rug, the Christmas tree. So we're really putting all the detail in there to make sure that we have it. Because once we leave the scene, all we have is our pictures and the data and the information that we collected and brought with us. So all of those things are going on. And then we find out that on the DVR that we found, there's a camera that essentially looks at the front of the house, and multiple cameras that look in front of the house.
Nice, and that's the DVR they didn't take.
Yes. So now we can say that Silly took the DVR that was in the back in the computer.
Because it's on the other DVR.
Because we watched them.
Oh, wow, yeah. Was this internal cameras in the house, or you just saw him leaving the house with it in hand?
Yeah, so the one camera is near the front door and looks into the house, and the door's open for a lot of things that occur. And I guess now's the time. Now's the time that I think everybody's kind of presumed things going on. I think I'll share it now because going into too much more detail, during the trial in which Silly was convicted of murder, times 2, and arson. He told the jury, told us that he got caught cheating on his wife with the victim, not the homeowner, but her friend, by the homeowner. And then there was
at the party.
At the party. Oh, you know what? That's good, Scott. Thank you for bringing it up. So here's the crazy twist of this whole thing. He's at the party with his wife and his son. And again, we know this from the jury trial. Like, this is all out there. A lot of it's his words.
And the tenants were saying that they were there, right?
Yeah. So the tenant talked about the party and all those things. What we know is they left, and wife and son were outside. He was inside. These things go on. And he admits to essentially beating them, stabbing them like a meat cleaver, all kinds of stuff. I mean,
God.
It's intense. It's intense. Like, it's really intense. Yeah, terrible. Just miserable. And, I can still visualize it today, right? Just terrible. And then going home with his wife after this happens, and his son.
Wait, do the wife and the son know that it happened, or he was just like, be right back, and then he does that, and then oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it gets better.
He doesn't have like blood on him? Like,
no, it gets better. So they go home. And at some point, and wife and son don't really know anything.
they're just coming home from a New Year's party.
Yeah, they go home, they go to bed. Well, while they're in bed, he leaves and comes back. Silly leaves and comes back and proceeds to clean up. Full X. Proceeds to clean up. And we also watch him take various items outside of the house, including our 2 women.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that happens. And then, through just...
And the women are deceased at this point, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. we know they're deceased.
How is he doing this without the other tenants seeing anything is my
Isn't it-
question.
So remember I told
I mean,
you
I guess
the
it's me.
one was home and heard it, and the other one kind of gets interesting. We're really fortunate there weren't more people hurt, right? Knowing that the one tenant's on the side and the other one kind of comes home at times where he very nearly could have crossed paths with Silly.
Oh my gosh. Those two tenants are probably just like, I don't even know what you think at that point. Like, not only did that happen, you escaped death, like survivor's guilt,
Just
all of it.
insanity. So we know that he takes them, we see him take all kinds of stuff, and he cleans the house. He cleans up, which that's why I said we'll bounce around a little bit. We'll get to this through just what I would consider, and I've had a lot of cases. I've responded to a lot of fires and had a lot of criminal cases. What I would consider probably some of the best detective work that I've ever gotten to sit and watch or be a part of. They essentially are able to, through their detective work and their interviews, figure out where they're at, where the two victims are. We'll call them victims now. And they find them in Newport Beach, just kind of dumped. And that's, again, in the jury trial. It's in the newspaper
Dumped on
articles.
the beach?
No, they're in like a wooded area right off of the roadway.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the city of Newport Beach. So that happens.
Really quick, did we find them, or did
No,
the public,
no,
member of the public?
no. The police found him.
Oh, okay.
And pretty quickly.
Okay.
And we're able to, properly take care of them and treat them the way they deserve to be treated, and hadn't been treated the previous 24 hours. Given the situation that we were dealt, they were able to really, do the right thing. And evidence they found on them confirmed a lot of the stuff that came out at the jury trial, with the beatings and the stabbings and the illicit behavior with the wife's friend. That's all confirmed.
So just so I'm clear, he went back, or no, he went in while this wife and child were in the car, and then he got in an altercation because he had relations with the one lady and the other one was threatening to speak out on that.
Or he was engaged in
He
an
was
affair.
he was actually engaged in the act and was with his wife in the car and was caught.
Oh, so that's the deed. So he came back that night, and that's when he
Wait, now
unalived
I'm
him.
confused.
I am
I'm
too.
No,
sorry. Okay.
no. So essentially, wife and son go out to the car. He goes back into the house, begins this act with the friend.
Relationship.
His relationship is caught by the homeowner, who's also a friend of both
Both girls. 'cause
both
they
girls.
Both work together.
Yep.
Okay.
She, according to his statement, they have a confrontation, and at that time he essentially beats them to death.
Both of them.
Both of them.
Wow.
Both women. Then he leaves, goes home, takes wife, son home, comes back, cleans up, and then removes computers, DVR, those types of things, removes all kinds of stuff, cleans up all the blood, all that stuff, right? So he thinks, cleans up and then leaves.
Yeah.
Dumps them and then goes back home. They come back at the time that we find them, out front of the house.
No, he set those fires too, right?
Yes. So after cleaning up, we watch him. We actually see him start the fires, or at least one of the fires, and the vodka was the accelerant used or attempted to be used, as well as maybe the Folex.
So did Silly know that there were other tenants in the house at the time? Or did he have any concerns really?
I don't know. I don't know if that even came up at the trial. There was so much going on with this other focus, and to be honest, I don't know how much that would have changed any of this stuff.
Were you there when they had the opportunity to interview the wife? Was she totally shocked by this, or because I feel like
That's a good question.
Because if you come back I'm just thinking, in my situation, if someone came back to the car and okay, maybe they weren't bloody, but you just killed someone, your headspace had. I mean, I guess if it's a party you're drinking, but I don't know.
Yeah, by all accounts, wife had absolutely no knowledge any of this went on.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, she had no knowledge any of this went on. That's
And her life completely uprooted and changed forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
And many lives
Yeah.
completely uprooted and changed forever.
Was he forthcoming? I know you weren't in those interviews with law enforcement, but was he forthcoming with these events? Do you know? Or once they told him, hey, you forgot a DVR, we see what's going on, he's like, all right, here's the deal. Or do you know?
No, it took, he wasn't forthcoming. He didn't divulge,
Okay.
all this. It took many hours and a lot of great detective work and interviews from that group, including the lead homicide detective who, well experienced, and it took a lot of work from them and phenomenal work to put the pieces together. At trial, he, if you look it up in the paper, you'll see his quotes where he talks about all these things that he did. So he was open with it there.
So did he plead guilty then, or he like?
No,
Because if he's being honest at trial.
I don't think he pled guilty because we did go to trial.
Yeah.
And he was convicted of the 2 murders and the arson, which, a lot of questions came up, later, like, hey, did the arson matter? He's already convicted of the murder.
Arson opened the door for the warrants, though.
It did. It opened the door for a lot of it. It opened the door for a lot of it. And it really was, our group, starting even with that engine captain, identifying, hey, something's not adding up here. As it evolved, every step of the way, we all kind of were on the same page, and it led to that. I think there's a little bit to it when you can say he was found guilty of the murders and the arson.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, in the arson, so there's only really 7 reasons why someone commits an intentional act of setting fire. And the one here is crime concealment. So he commits a crime, and now he's trying to conceal the crime. But, obviously homicide is much more egregious than arson. But sometimes they can maneuver out of maybe the homicide. Maybe they weren't more forthcoming or whatever, and you can still pursue the arson and get that, and that's still a felony. And sometimes through good defense attorney tactics, or maybe not every case, let me put it this way, every case has some weaknesses. So if a defense attorney can find that maybe a statement is not allowed in, and now I can't go after the arson or the homicide. So does it matter? Yeah. That case, the intentional set fire drove it to continue to examine. And then had you not collect carpet samples, you probably wouldn't have found the blood. So the homicide is much more egregious, but arson kind of helped us get there. And yeah, if I had to take one or the other, let's go after the homicide. But in case it's not there, we're glad that we came in with our arson too. And then he got convicted for all of them.
Yeah. And, to even tag onto that, I think the moral of all this has been, if something doesn't feel right, try to figure out why, but also the coordination and collaboration between everybody that was doing it. I mean, we had LA City Fire, we had, obviously us, our suppression folks, the investigators, Westminster Police, their CSI, the crime lab, the DA. There were so many groups that were working on this thing collaboratively. Other agencies that were helping Westminster Police as far as like door knocking and trying to identify people and all of those things that occurred. All that. And even when we got into collecting the evidence, and I won't divulge too much because it just doesn't need to be, but the fire expertise, our expertise in collecting evidence was a huge help and assistance to the police. Because like I said, he cleaned up.
Yeah.
And initially if you stood in there, you would have no idea. Essentially a lot of us went through the door where 2 people were killed, right where it happened, and there was nothing visible initially. So it took some of our expertise to identify areas where those things would be, and sure enough, we found them.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You said the camera faced towards that door. Was the homicide actually captured on video? Like, is that visible? So you can see that?
That's hard.
Oh, wow. That's a rough one.
Yeah.
Did they play it in court?
Because I was a witness for my piece, I wasn't able to be there for all of court. I was only there for pieces of it that I was allowed to be there. And then, certainly there for sentencing where a lot of a summation occurred of these things. And then a lot of it is just knowing, what's written in the papers and those things. So.
Yeah, I have one more question. You said arson is a felony. What's the jail time associated with that typically? I know it varies a little bit.
It depends. So I'll let Shaun speak to this because this is really his area where he files the cases for us. But it depends on if you go 451A as an Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Delta. And Shaun knows the times, but.
Yeah, so it varies anywhere from 18 months for basically a property crime up to 7 years for like an inhabited dwelling. But then there's a lot of variables that come into that with different enhancements and things that were done to cause the fire, So it's not really a straightforward answer. It depends on how.
So in this case,
what.
an accelerant was used, so that's going to add some more. What's another one that we commonly see? Oh, if you're a registered arsonist already, that's a mandatory and additional, 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years or more. And then
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Property damage can come in.
So you were already on the case for over 24 hours, just on the scene initially. So from start to finish on this case, from January 1st till it was essentially adjudicated or case closed, what was that timeline like?
Yeah. So our initial on scene time was over 24 hours initially on scene. Then went home, took a break. Because although they were found eventually, we didn't find them initially. And there was some stuff with the cameras that took some work with that DVR. All the answers weren't just handed to us. It took some work to get through to it. So we took a couple hours off, went back to it. And I'd say in that first few days, we were well over 100 hours for me individually, plus my partners each, had, close to that in hours. But what's interesting in this, and, we've talked about it here, I really didn't do any, but I didn't do a ton of prep. I didn't have to have this conversation. This one's pretty ingrained in my head. But what's crazy, and I think most people don't realize, is we didn't go to trial till 2022 on this. So I didn't.
From 2017 to 2022. Holy moly!
I didn't get up on the stand and talk about my findings for 5 years.
So that is so important. Like when you were saying earlier about like the map drawing and doing all of that when you're right at the scene to really help keep your memory sharp.
Yeah, the map drawing, the report writing. My initial origin and cause is, I think it's 28 pages, and the detail that went into it. Obviously, as this case progressed, we recognized the importance and the significance. They're all important. They're all significant. But this one, every step gained a little bit more. There was more to it. So that detail and that time that went in, I think I took about 450 pictures of the scene. My initial origin and cause was like 28 pages. And then follow-up reports and all those other things that went on with the, between the video and then Orange County Crime Lab doing their piece and Investigator Gaeta from LA City doing his piece with K9 Blue, just hundreds of hours and all those details. And then we had, to get up on the stand and explain it in a way that brought justice as best we could, do our piece to make sure that justice was brought. So, it was interesting. And I think, I think that's an important message for me that I try to share with my counterparts is, hey, write your reports like you might need them in 5 years. We all
Seriously.
We all hear it in EMT or paramedic school, like, oh, your report's going to be blown up on the wall someday, blah, blah, blah. And you hear it so much, you kind of, whatever.
Yeah. But it will convict a murderer.
I wish it was blown up on the wall. What people don't know is we don't get to read them while we're on the stand. We can reference them. We can ask for permission to look at it, but really we have to testify to what we experienced or what we saw with the facts, the data that we got. Our report just captured that. So really the report is just there to help us jog our memory. We're not allowed to read it because essentially they could just let the jury read it and then that would be fact. So for it to be admissible, we have to actually talk about it. And our report is just there. Really, I'd say it's for us, right, Scott, to jog our memory and be able to use.
It's to, for us personally, it's to refresh our recollection, but it's also for the DA to look into the merits of the case. And we may have probable cause, but do they have enough for reasonable doubt? So that's what it's for. One thing I'd like to, I don't know, are you comfortable to show this?
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing,
I mean,
just
that's
looking at
open source.
One
off
thing
the
that,
internet.
looking at the article that you brought in, and we'll post it on the.
Yes, yeah, we'll put it online.
You just looking at the perpetrator of this. It's kind of it's not. Is that what you envisioned when you're looking at this person?
No, it just looks like a person at the grocery store.
Yes.
Just walking right by. Like I wouldn't. I mean, to the tenant's credit, it's just some guy at a party at your friend's house, or
You just look, and I don't know what we envision in our mind, but that's not it.
They say you walk every day. Is it every day or every week? You walk past 3 serial killers or something like that?
I've never heard
I may
that.
have to. I'll come back with an updated. Yeah, or it's like in your lifetime. I'm gonna Google it. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
Okay, it's not every week.
I'm sitting in a room with 3 people, so are you telling me you're all 3 serial killers?
Every hour.
You walk by a serial killer.
Anytime you sit down, 3 out of the 4 are serial killers.
I misjudged slightly. Okay, let's see. Some say the average person will walk back past, guess, how many in their lifetime? How many?
Okay, so now we're back to lifetime?
Yeah, lifetime.
Well, you said 3.
Okay, but in your whole life. It's way higher than 3.
How many?
Well, Scott and I's life is probably a lot different than most.
Yeah.
That's true. 36 in your whole life. So I definitely passed him in the grocery store. So really quick, I just want to talk about the star of the show. I'm just kidding. The dog, Blue. He's 15 out of 10, good boy. So you were talking in the beginning a little bit about how this inspired you to get freedom. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're a big county. We serve a big community. And at the time, there was only 2 dogs in the state of California that were resources available to us, one in San Diego and one in LA. As you can imagine, LA, they were really busy. So we were tapping that resource quite a bit for these cases. So we had this case where we were waiting.
I gotta go.
Oh.
Bye, Scott.
Oh, guys.
Be safe. Oh, yeah. So this is real life. So the investigators are actually on duty. So Scott just got a call. So he's leaving us. Bye, Scott.
Bye, guys.
We had a delay in waiting for, this canine to come. And then there's the request to have to go through those other agencies. And although there's never an issue helping each other out, and people do that. We had this case, so this one was discussed. And then we had another case about a year later or not even a year, a couple months later, where both the San Diego dog and LA dog were together in Oakland. They had a number of fires up there. So they were covering all the way up into Oakland. And we ended up having to sit on a fire, I think it was 3 days that we essentially waited to be able to bring the dogs in.
Right, and
to
not
be able
disturb
to.
it.
Yeah. So there was kind of, why don't we have that resource? What's it take? So we started that process, and Chief Sherwood was an advocate for it, and Chief Smith, and supported it all the way as we approached this and applied and worked through it. And then, obviously the whole agency supported it. And we came back with Freedom. December 2018, Freedom and I went into service after the academy in Virginia. My wife gave birth to our youngest in June of 2018. And in October of 2018, I left for 7 weeks to go to the academy.
Aw, shout out to Mrs. Miller.
And we came back with Freedom. Since then, Freedom and I have run over 200 calls together, mostly in Orange County. Obviously, Orange County is our priority. OCFA is our priority, but we just this last month, we've helped City of Anaheim and City of Orange with a couple of their fires. And we've kind of been all over the U.S. for different events. Most significantly, we were in Las Vegas for 2 weeks for a really large dollar loss fire. And that was just because the next closest dog at the time was in New Mexico. So we were the closest resource to get there. So we're really fortunate to have them and have that resource. And Freedom's 7, and he's getting up there. So hopefully we'll continue the program and make sure we continue to support the county.
Absolutely. And Freedom's a 15 out of 10 good boy. So. Well, thank you so much for being on our show and sharing your story. Great work to you and all of our mutual aid partners as well. And as we mentioned earlier, Scott did get a call and he is out dispatched to a fire. So I will wrap up the show. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you learned a lot and we hope that you listen in on the next one. Stay safe, guys.